Oh.
Special meeting of January 13th.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And Kevin will read the notice because it's in small print. I can't read that.
Notices from this top?
No,
Or
you
okay,
just do.
yeah, so application of Joanne Matthews Trust, care of Jacob Matthews trustee, 72 Clubhouse Road, Tuxedo Park, New York, 10987, tax map number 107-1-34, seeking relief from a decision of the Village of Tuxedo Park Board of Architectural Review made at the November 4th, 2024 meeting, where the Board of Architectural Review denied the approval of asphalt GAF architectural shingles to replace existing cedar shingles. The application plan are available for review Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Village Hall, Village of Tuxedo Park, 80 Laurelard Road, Tuxedo Park, New York, 10987, or on the Village of Tuxedo Park website, tuxedopark-newyork.gov. If you wish to attend the meeting remotely, the Zoom video conference can be obtained, blah, blah, blah. All right.
That's good. And what proof of mailings?
19 letters were mailed. I'm just reading the receipts for a moment.
Those are the mailings. There was 28, I believe, mailed with 19 returned. Sorry, I spoke that turn.
No, that's it. You're right. 28 mailed, 19 returned.
Now, Elise, do you, since obviously this is kind of not the typical meeting where we're giving relief to the zoning code, do you want to give the board any special instructions or not?
Not really. I mean, it's a bit unusual. You are given original jurisdiction under the code to actually review and take action with a BAR approval. So you can reverse, you can modify, you can hold. My only suggestion would be that you listen to both sides, meaning that if there is anyone here from the ARB and or the BAR, and there should be.
Present.
Okay, so that person should be allowed to speak after the applicant speaks. Then you would open the public hearing. The area variance criteria that you typically consider when you look at variances, and I consider this to be, certainly isn't a use variance. It's
Right.
not really an interpretation. So the closest I think you can get is to go through the criteria for the area variance. Pay special attention to the possibility of precedent when you make your decision. And the possibility that others may come before you appealing a BAR decision. Do you have any questions before we get started?
Is there any existing precedent where this kind of meeting has happened in the past?
No,
We haven't had it.
we have never had. it. Okay, so that part of it is a precedent.
Tuxedo Park is a bit unusual. The BAR acts, it has a lot of planning board type authority as well as architectural review authority. Typically, ARBs and other jurisdictions that I'm aware of, as well as planning boards and other jurisdictions, do not appeal to the BZA. They would have to appeal in a court action. So it's it's very different here. And so just keep that in mind as you go through the process. It's going to be a little bit unusual.
And the fact that the provision in the code that allows applicants to appeal to the BZA, is that a new provision or that's been in the code for a while? It's just no one's ever exercised it before.
That's really, it's been there for a while. No one's exercised it. Quite frankly, we have, Elise has sent a memorandum to the Board of Trustees, basically saying we don't want to be put in this position anymore. Okay, so that has not been acted upon by them, but that's, that's where we are.
That was at the direction of the chairman.
Right.
Yep.
Applicant presents.
Coach?
Yes.
Thanks, John. Thank you, everyone, for attending the meeting and establishing a quorum under notice during sort of the holiday period. We deeply appreciate it. And do you mind if I pull up some collateral and share the desk with you
Yeah.
as I go forward here? Okay. I understand it may be a unique circumstance to come in front of the BZA, but that is what the village code reads, and so we're just following the process. Has everyone had a chance to review the material that we submitted, specifically a letter that outlines what we believe to be hardships in our unique situation for this particular roof application?
Yes.
Okay. I can go into that a little bit. I'd love the opportunity to read it into the record. I did it at the BAR. I also have some photos here which were submitted. Did everyone have a chance to review those photos? It's okay if you didn't. I brought them on my computer. And it
Just
won't
the
take-
photos that were part of the attachment.
Gotcha.
We had these
Yes.
photos,
That's
which is what's here. Okay.
Generally,
That
what I
was part
have
of the-
here,
right.
yeah, helpful to see it digitally though, because we can.
You know, if you want to flip through it
Yeah.
digitally, that's part of your presentation.
Right, so, the broad picture here is that this is a material that's in very wide use in Tuxedo Park. And in 2019, rather than just stripping the roof and putting on a material that's in wide use in Tuxedo Park, I opted to follow what I believe to be the upstanding citizen route and consult the building inspector and code enforcement officer and ask what the right process is. And that is to come in front of the bar for a review of the material, have a look at it. I anticipated no problem. We were denied in 2019. So this issue of having a cedar roof has been problematic going back for a number of years now. I think if you count now, I'm 6 years into this trying to resolve it. So most recently was November 4th in front of the bar where we pleaded our case with a number of hardships, which I'll go through. And in the interim, I've received a letter from my insurance company stating that we are going to have our insurance canceled on the 22nd of January. And obviously that's a non-starter. I can't have that happen. And so I need an approval for a roofing material. First and foremost, I'll go down just a list of 6 or 7. So any questions on that?
Go ahead.
Okay, all right. I think important to mention here is that what we're dealing with is an interpretation of aesthetic design guidelines that are actually really, in my opinion, or my reading of it, and numerous professionals I've spoken with have iterated that this does not appear to be enshrined in code. It is not an interpretation of the village code. It's an interpretation of guidelines that could be moving and shifting. And the boards, both in my view, BAR and BZA, have a strong ability to have discretion on such matters when a case is presented that has relevance and a case is presented that has fundamental reasoning to allow a switch in material. I think that's the case here. Number one, this home had pre-existing material of asphalt shingle when my family purchased it and during our ownership. So we believe it should be grandfathered. I have photos from the 1980s, which I'll show you. During my family's ownership, the asphalt was on the roof until the 1990s. So we believe it's a reversion to what the home had during our purchase and our possession. I'll also note the architectural guidelines, again, which are not code, went into effect, I believe, in 2012. And that was post our switch. And had we known that you would not be able to switch back, we may have reconsidered that decision. And I think it's something, you know, to consider in this process. Number two, the asphalt architectural shingle, or I should say GAF architectural shingle, is an approved material in Tuxedo Park. by default, it's in wide use, and it's an established part of the current design vernacular. Approximately 90% of the homes on Clubhouse Road are asphalt shingle, and it's being installed every year on multiple homes throughout Tuxedo Park in a broad array of colors. There are very high percentage of use of this roofing material in Tuxedo Park, even on large estates. Some are waterfront, historic estates. So I believe there's a property right issue here and a similarity of use issue, so that we don't end up with disparate treatment. The cedar shingle does not really work in this particular application for technical reasons. I believe a technical hardship. Spoken with a number of roofers who said it's really not the right material to use in the way this house is situated and the slopes of the roof. The shed dormers on the home are currently an asphalt rolled membrane material, so there's already pre-existing rubberized non-natural material on the roof.
And it's just one question.
Sure,
Is that-
please.
Is that covered by the cedar shingles, or that's?
No, it's
that's-
exposed.
that's
Yeah,
exposed.
it's not as, the pitch of that is relatively flat, and
Yep.
that's the appropriate application for it. Excuse me.
Understood.
I think it's important to note the roof of this house does not face the street directly. It's perpendicular to the roadway, making it much less visible than other area of roofs. There's a wall with a beautiful aluminum fence and some evergreen screening. So as you're coming down the street, you don't see it that much. There are other homes on Clubhouse Road that broad face the street with very large expanses of asphalt roofing, and they've been redone in the last year to 2 years. I've seen that going on. The spread of costs, importantly, we believe there's a financial hardship here. The spread of cost between asphalt architectural shingle and cedar shingle is really not something can sustain. The average quote we have for cedar is approximately 56. Some of them are ranging into the 70s, 60s and 70s. The average quote from asphalt is in the 20s. We've obtained multiple quotes from reputable roofing professionals, and the spread of cost and differential is just something I can't bear. So there's a very clear financial situation here, and at risk of reminding everyone, a roof is not an optional aesthetic feature on a home. It's not a shutter style. It's not a paint color. It's not the location of shrubs or gravel color in the driveway. A roof is a critical infrastructure component to maintain the integrity and longevity of the structure. It's the first line of defense, and now being a critical point at our home, and with ever increasing severe rain, heavy wind, storm events, we're definitely in a critical spot. I remind everyone of the fire risks that we just had in Sterling Forest, encroaching not far from our village. And God bless everybody in Los Angeles, but it's something to bring up that cedar could potentially be a more dangerous material. I have multiple other points I can make on it, but I don't want to go too deep into it unless it's absolutely necessary. I'm here to plead for for approval on this material, and I would ask for the board to support us in that.
You have a photograph of the existing, when it was an asphalt shingle roof?
Yes. Multiple photographs. This one probably goes back to probably the 1960s or so. That's from the Rose Garden looking toward a northeasterly direction. And that's from the yard, not from the street. So you see the roof there. You can see it there. Yeah,
So how old is the cedar?
approximately 1999. So that's now,
So in
26 years.
2019, you said, hey, I've got to replace this.
Yes,
From 99 to 2019,
correct.
that roof was
Yeah, it was
functioning for you.
cupping, yes, but it was cupping, and we had, I mean, even before that, it probably should have been addressed, but it was cupping, and then subsequent to that, we started to get animal intrusion. Woodpeckers like to come at cedar. It's just, it's tricky. That's all I can say. And so, so that wasn't the only picture of the home with the, let me get more recent, during our ownership. So this is during our ownership or during my family's ownership right there. That's a 3-tab shingle. It's a grayish color. What we're proposing is what's called weathered wood. It's in the back there. The
Well,
material.
It's overlaid on that one picture that you showed.
It is overlaid on multiple pictures and it's an uncanny similarity. I mean, this company goes out and studies how to make these things look like the actual material. And it's not meant to be looked at from 2 or 3 feet away. It resolves itself much better from a distance because they've built in various technical shadowings and that sort of thing. So from a distance, if you look at it, it's amazing how similar it is. But this is the home during our ownership. Again, that was a very straightforward, probably 3-tab shingle. That was what was on it, I believe, when our family purchased the home. And we optionally made a switch to cedar at some point, and it just hasn't worked out. Now, I mean, for lack of a better word, I have my back against the wall now after all this time from 2019 to now. We're being told that we may not be able to be insured on that. So I need to make a change. This is the condition of it now. In various parts, you can see there was some animal intrusion, which we had to take care of and try to keep up with. But this is the material we're proposing in situ. Or better yet, when you see it from a distance there. I don't know if you can see that. That's called weathered wood.
You have an example of that with you?
Yes,
Set in the back?
it's right there in the back of the room. Yeah.
Can everyone see that?
Why don't you have one of your brothers get it?
I can bring it. Yeah, I'm strong
No,
enough.
I'll get it. Plus, I want to speak too when it's time.
Okay.
One of your family, I should say.
It's better,
Actually-
the farther away you are from it, it's better.
And
It's like if I brought it there, is this the one, Jake, in the front?
yes,
Okay.
the one in the front. And I brought other samples because
We're not
They-
closed on any one particular one. You guys can tell us if you think this one looks better on a gray barn, stable. But we do want to go with asphalt.
Can I just read
Yes.
the really technical data on the back?
the weathered wood, yeah. And I'm being told this is
Yeah, sorry.
pretty much a 50-year shingle.
Want that one?
The other thing I'll volunteer,
Sorry, it's a 25-year warranty.
question, yes, you can't get a warranty on cedar. You can get a transferable
Will cedar
warranty.
last? I mean, that's why I asked the question.
Yes.
Like you got a lot of mileage out of that cedar roof. If you felt compelled to come to change it and get a request to change it in 1990. Like that's a
1999,
1999.
yes,
1999.
yeah, 26 years, yeah.
But the roof started going bad after probably 9 years.
Well, but you didn't come and ask to change it. So, I mean,
Yeah.
26 years from, because a cedar, I've got one myself, a cedar shingle roof. If you get 15 years, you're doing good. So,
And this, you're gonna get a warranty for 25 and you can get 50 years out of it. So it's a different product with a different lifespan to it. And the affordability factor is one of my core issues here.
yeah,
I have a financial hardship.
we should talk about that too, whether that's something that is, I just, maybe even just to educate the board and the public here about what a financial hardship is in this regard.
Typically, the BZA standard, zoning board standard for financial hardship is competent financial information, dollars and cents with evidence presented. It cannot just be the word of the applicant.
That's written in code, but you.
That's in New
read
York
it?
state law.
Oh, okay. So if I may, just something on the precedent.
It would sound like the applicant has provided.
I've provided quotes on the roofing material, but I have, listen, everybody has a budget to maintain a property. I have other things I need to do with this property. It's not just this. This is a 140-year-old property. So I can't just go spending $75,000 on a roof. I can't do it. It's not sustainable. So beyond that, this is a material that's in wide use in this village. Need I remind us of something called PSEED, which is an acronym in real estate? It's possession, control, enjoyment, exclusion, and disposition. When you purchase a property, you have these inherent bundle of rights with your real estate. We have possession of the house. Control, I'll talk about in a minute. We have enjoyment. We have the ability to exclude. We have the ability to dispose of the property as we want. Do we have control? No, we don't. We've lost control of the property because of the interpretation of design guidelines, not code, guidelines. You can vary from guidelines if someone presents to you a foundational reasoning as to why you should do that. We had a pre-existing asphalt on this home. We optionally chose to do it before the guidelines were put in place. It's a straightforward explanation. And one step further is to say, as with regards to multiple parties coming in front of here, it's never happened before. And we're providing you with evidence, photographic evidence of this house with asphalt on it beforehand. So I don't see how it's going to happen time and time again unless somebody can actually provide you with photographic evidence that something was pre-existing.
Elise, are you finished with your presentation?
At the moment, yes. Thank you so much for hearing me.
Go to the
I think if-
VAR at this point before we open it up to the public, or do we open it up to the public and then go to the VAR
VAR.
first?
I would suggest going to the BAR first, but I believe that EJ also might have wanted to speak on behalf of the family.
Yes. Yeah, just 5 minutes. I can speak from here too. That's fine.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, Jake's already covered the main points, some of the technical things. My biggest concerns, cedar roof in our situation is the way the house sits this way versus along the streetway. There gets a high amount of sun on this side, very hot in the summer. No sun on this side, which has caused moss to grow all over it, which has caused rot, R-O-T. It started early on. We saw it. I have done a lot of research on roofing materials, and safety. And my biggest concern is my father lives in the house at 80 years old, 80 years young, I should say. And we just got firsthand evidence of it. We had a very powerful tornado come through Tuxedo just recently. We had events of rain where we've had as much as 9 or 10 inches of rain in a day. We have had a forest fire that burned for 2 weeks over here. And when I first said to the Tuxedo Police, you think it'd ever make it to Tuxedo? Oh, it's mountains away. And it ended up on Long Meadow Road and literally jumped Long Meadow Road a couple places. That's, as a crow flies, pretty close to coming up the back end. That could get out of control really quick. It's only going to get worse with, I'm not going to call it climate change, but that's sort of word everybody throws around. But the world is heating up, and an ember can fly for miles, which is what we're seeing in California, while you're seeing a fire on one end of LA and now it's over on that end of LA. High winds happen. It happened during that fire over by Greenwood Lake, which ended up with Golden Forest. And having an asphalt roof would protect an ember roof. When an ember lands on it, doesn't burn right through. If it's cedar shake, it's a fact that the house most likely will catch on fire. We have great fire departments here, yes, but if our house catches in the next one, Tuxedo Park, Clubhouse Road in general is the tightest street in the whole park. And I believe that if one house catches on fire, it could easily jump to the next. It's a safety factor for my dad. We're not asking for something out of the ordinary here. We're asking for a roof that was originally on our house. Should be grandfathered in it. We can get what we want. My mom, thank God, had the house. She did the cedar shake roof. It looked good for 5 or 6 years, and then it started going, cupping, cracking, and getting moss all over. So she tried to make it look good. It didn't work. So we're asking to back to what we had in a nicer material, more modern, that looks similar to Cedar Shake after a few years. It changes to that color. It's not like we're asking you to do something bizarre to, it's what everybody else is putting on around us. So with that said, I think I covered most of my points. And I appreciate you listening, and I hope you consider the situation along with the hardship. Safety is my big factor in fire. You wouldn't want that on your hands if it does catch on fire because you put a cedar shake roof on it.
One other, thank you, EJ.
You're welcome.
Well-
Thank you for everybody
Well,
coming out tonight.
yeah. The other thing I'll say is as far as the GAF goes, I've tried to select the highest level material that they offer. It's called Timberline HDZ. They have other ones that are below this that don't have as much definition, as much depth, et cetera. And like I said, these materials resolve really well when you get them up in situ. So questions, you know, and I'll add, I appreciate the bar's role in the village. I don't discount the bar's role in what they do. They've done an amazing job on numerous important projects, but I think we have a material that's in wide use and it really should be closely and distinctly considered this discussion here.
So, as a member of the bar, with this decision we made, because the Tuxedo Park Village is on the National Historic Register. And so when restorations happen with buildings, we certainly don't want to regress. We don't want to go backwards. We want to at least maintain the current standard or improve it. So with this and other applications, to go backwards from a cedar roof to a synthetic roof is we discourage. The original, discussing the grandfathered aspect, obviously originally, when the building was built as a carriage house, it probably would have had the cedar roof, not an asphalt roof. So the grandfathered aspect doesn't hold for us. The visibility of the house is a charming structure and is more fortunate than most of them on that block, in that there's the extra piece of land before it. So when you're driving down, the roof is very visible because there isn't a house right next to it. So they were the main reasons why we voted to decline the replacement of the natural cedar shingles with the asphalt.
But it is, I mean, their point is, you know, I've driven up and down the street and 90% of the homes on that particular street do have asphalt shingles.
Right, but if any house that has the cedar roof, we don't want to go back. If a house has an asphalt roof and they need to replace it, we're fine replacing with like. We would prefer that it's upgraded, and so to upgrade to stay the same, we're on board with. To regress, to go back, we're not.
No, I understand the position.
Yeah, just to confirm though, the decision to go from the asphalt to the cedar shake was made prior to the existing guidelines going in place? Is that?
I believe so. I believe the guidelines were put in place in approximately 2012.
Yeah.
I
I don't know if it's
believe,
2012. I think
It's
it's
definitely 2012.
Well, it was 2012.
Oh, I know.
So you
so.
know
the
year.
Oh, I wrote them.
All right, okay.
13
Right.
years after
they-
we decided.
More
to
ministers.
select cedar.
12.
yeah, and like I said, had we known that the guidelines would be interpreted nearly as code by various boards, when they're actually not code, we may not have made the decision to switch over. And I actually think it's all having the unintended consequence of discouraging people from trying the new material. So for example, somebody who has asphalt right now, who can afford to do cedar, may opt not to do so because they know they may never be able to switch back if it doesn't work out on their application of that situation because of the way things are being interpreted. If I get into if I get into the roofs, first of all, I don't know if it's mentioned in code anywhere. Code I'm talking about, Village of Tuxedo Park, E code 360. I don't even know if roofs are mentioned or the actual material of cedar or how that's interpreted. It is in the guidelines, and in the guidelines, it actually specifically mentions asphalt as a material and how asphalt should be treated specifically with ridge caps and that sort of
You have the
thing.
pictures of the ridge caps with asphalt shingles in the guidelines.
Yeah.
Or how to properly
Right.
assemble a roof
With
Correct.
asphalt.
as historically as possible
Right.
when using asphalt.
I don't
It's
think
not
we're
a-
even
it's
gonna be
not
doing
a-
a ridge cap.
This isn't a discussion about whether asphalt is.
No, I don't,
appropriate in
the word asphalt
Car.
is not used in the description in the guidelines. The word asphalt is, I don't think it's there.
Yeah, it is. It says ridge caps for asphalt shingles should terminate before the ends of eaves. In fact, I don't think, well, I have to consult with the roofer in final, but I don't think we're gonna be doing a ridge cap because there are two gabled end vents on the house. So I
you
don't
wouldn't
think,
need a ridge cap.
I just don't think a ridge cap is necessary, so it's gonna look nice and clean. Um,
From the BAR perspective, is there any issue with the color or it's just purely the material?
No, it's purely, we've never gone backwards, we've never regressed with standards, so, that's why we're there, to uphold the standards. So if it was like with like, that's fine, but just to go backwards, it's
Can I
So-
interrupt on that? Chris keeps saying backwards. Who's to interpret that going to cedar shakes versus asphalt? Which one is backwards? Because to me, asphalt might be a better material than cedar shake, considering what's going on in Los Angeles right now, where houses that could have, the number one reason why houses, when you look at a 50,000, 50 houses in a neighborhood leveled and one is standing, it's clearly a fact that the reason that house is standing is because our building material used withstood the fires around them. And that, number one, is the roof. All right? Yes, landscaping caused a problem.
Well, it was
That's
probably,
a-
the one that lasted out there was probably a
Plain
slate or a
tile.
tile.
But
It was
they'll
a
need
probably, it
that
wasn't,
asphalt.
wasn't asphalt. It was
No,
it was a tile, it was a tile roof, I'm
Yeah,
sure, not
but
an
building
asphalt.
Material, what I'm getting at is the building material used. So what I'm getting at is if an ember comes from a forest fire next year, from a campfire that let loose and comes up, you're gonna wish you did not have a cedar shake roof. So again, I'm bringing up the safety factor, but I can't, like, I know what Chris is saying, the cedar shake roofs look really cool, all right? But when 90% of the houses have asphalt, and it's not like you guys went across the board in the guidelines and said anybody putting a new roof on a house has to use cedar shake or slate. You didn't do that. So therefore, it's almost like a double standard going on where the guy across the street's putting a new roof on and he can do asphalt and we can't.
quick question.
So that's all
I
I'm saying.
think,
I don't know which way is backwards or going back, you're saying backwards is.
we're just saying the standard, we're trying to
Yeah,
uphold a standard,
Right.
and this is lowering the
It's gonna take-
standard.
And it's an
500
historical
years.
standard,
Yeah,
and
but
it's
it's gonna
a,
take 500 years for every house to become cedar shake if you go at the rate we're going, unless you change the complete laws.
that's not
where
the
you say
point of that.
Everybody has to do
That's not
cedar
the
shake.
point.
You're gonna keep running into people just keep putting the asphalt on. You have to loosen up a little bit on this situation where you say to people, if you wanna try cedar shake and you have the money to do it, you do it, and you can come back and revert and go to the board. You gotta have some kind of a little.
Well, I think
Otherwise,
here
it's not friendly.
is the point that the BAR made is you had a wood shingle roof, okay? And that's, kind of where that was the criteria that was established that they're looking at, okay? So you had a wood shingle roof.
if I may, the, in front of the BZA, and I could be wrong, you have to tell me what your mandate is, but the impact to the surroundings and the neighborhood, we're not looking to change the roof line of the house. We're not doing a bump out. We're not going beyond the footprint of the house. We're not rearranging our site plan. We're looking to protect this structure and keep it for the long term with regards to the integrity of it. And we have to do that within a budget. There's other work to do on a property that's 140 years old. So we have to budget accordingly so that we don't end up in a situation where the next project can't be done. It's very, very important to consider that aspect. The fact of the matter is, first of all, John, may I ask, did we receive any neighbor comments one way or the other?
No.
Okay, at this point, nothing written. I will say, when I came in front of the BAR in 2019, we had a comment. Who was it lived in the Witt house? Joan Riccardi.
Right.
Joan Riccardi sent in
It's
a
the-
positive
it's
comment
it's in this
in the
book.
previous,
It's
all right.
in- it's
That was
in there from the
2019.
Minutes of the meeting.
This time when we came in front of BAR, Carol Ann Nicholson, who owns a home on the street, Carol Ann and Alexander, sent a letter of support for us to be able to move forward with this project. We may move, there are some people from the public here. I didn't go out and solicit support from the public. It's not my style, okay? I believe we have a very clear-cut representation of what needs to be done here, what's fair to be done here. So at the end of the day, the impact of this is very low. If I go around Tuxedo Park, I can stand here and have a very long historical history of this village, and I can tell you things that have been done in this park that have drastically changed the look of this park that have never been called out. And I'm not going to get into it here right now, but the impact of this is minor to nil. I mean, you can hardly. I would ask the board's opinion. Can you see the dramatic change that's there? And as far as precedent goes, we have photographic history of the house with asphalt on it. It has asphalt membrane roofing on it right now. Thank
I'd like to make a motion to open the meeting to the public. So move. All in favor?
Yes.
Okay. Second? No,
Second.
okay. Was any,
I think you want me to go first. And I have to explain, apologize. I'm not very good on the computer. I don't have a computer on my iPad. And I was getting it all there and I thought I can't read this very well. And so I put it on my computer, my iPad, and I was trying to print it and it wouldn't print. And anyway, I lost it all. So I have some notes here. But he's very good. But you're all friends. Thank you. Anyway, good evening, Ellen. And I have lived in the park 57 years. And for the last 7 years on Clubhouse Road. And I'm here to support Jacob Matthews, who is seeking relief from a decision of the BAR, which denied approval of his asphalt, architectural shingle, and to replace the existing deteriorated cedar shingles. Jake and his brothers need and want to replace the deteriorated shingles on his mother's house. But most of the houses on Clubhouse Road have used asphalt. And it doesn't, to me, it doesn't make sense. But the Matthews are required to replace it with cedar, which is double the price of the asphalt and actually doesn't have as long a life. I don't know what the reasoning was from the BAR. But the only reason I can see it's happening is that they didn't want to create a precedent for change, which I understand also, except that this was originally asphalt. Then it was changed in 1999. You know.
To cedar, yeah.
Thank you. And so it has had changes. And I just think that it just would be, I just don't know that it is all so fair. So, but I would like to thank you all for your board for arranging this meeting so that a decision could be made before January 22nd. The date the insurance company will cancel their house insurance unless a contract of repair is signed and that seems like a really important thing. We're kind of a wonderful community here. And we sometimes need to take care of people and make things work if we can. I would also like to add how impressed I am by Jake's report, which I am sure took was much hard work and research to produce. It shows how much he and his brothers care about getting their mother's house back in good shape, as it always was. And that they need understanding and help in a small community. Sorry, I'm not very good at this.
Did great.
Did great.
Yeah, we choked up a little bit now.
I'll wrote a short letter,
Okay.
which I'd like to read and then give to you.
We were done?
I am done. I'm not gonna give this. I'm gonna have to go home and buy my iPad again.
Thank you.
I'll get Nancy tomorrow.
That was very nice.
I write to support the request of Jacob Matthews to replace their roof at 72 Clubhouse Road with asphalt shingle for the following reasons. One, I do not see or understand how the request breaks any of the 5 requirements which guide the decisions of the Board of Zoning Appeals. 2, at one time, an asphalt roof was previously accepted. 3, I find it extremely unfair to impose such a costly roof suggested by the board to the roof that Jacob wishes to do. Living at 48 Clubhouse Road since 2006. And after driving past that house, I see it well kept and do not pay particular attention to the roof. I just don't see how you can refuse this appeal. Thank you for your service to the community and your consideration sincerely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Father. Well said.
Anyone else from the public? I'd like to close the public hearing.
Make a motion. Motion to move.
Fair, aye. For discussion,
Mr. Chairman, just before the board discusses this. If the board cannot issue a BAR approval. Therefore, if you modify the BAR's denial, the applicant would go back to the BAR for approval of the particular roofing material. If you say, for example, you overturn the denial of asphalt, they would still have to go back to the BAR because only the BAR can issue their approval.
May have
The
a
BAR
issue here.
would, so as far as the January date is concerned, that I just want everyone to be aware of that issue.
And what happens if the BAR then says, we're not gonna do it?
No, so you're sitting in your quasi judicial role. So you are acting a bit as a court. You're hearing testimony, et cetera, et cetera. You would, if you decided to reverse the BAR, you would send the applicant back to the BAR to make a new determination consistent with your reversal of their decision.
With the zoning board. Guiding of our decision. So our decision does it set up another framework by which the BAR opines on this application in any way?
Well, look, again, this is new.
Yeah,
I would assume that the BAR would have to allow asphalt shingle, but the BAR may decide of the 3 that it's seeing there, for example, it would decide which asphalt shingle it would approve.
got it.
Okay, so
So in fact, we're almost saying you can't deny asphalt signal. We're not saying.
that is,
But we're saying you can't deny it
in
just
this
because it's
particular,
asphalt.
In
Right.
this instance,
if you reversed, yes, I would also note that this is certainly, the BAR certainly has discretionary approval, right? But architectural guidelines have been upheld by the courts where there's a good reason for them to be implemented, and they are written down and approved by a village board of trustees, as these have been. So in this instance, I do not agree that with the implication that the guidelines have no force and effect.
Hmm.
Doesn't mean that they can't be challenged, but I think if they are challenged, a court would likely consider the historic nature of the park, and whatever the BAR put down in its decision, et cetera. But that's not before you right now. I just wanted to get that out on the table so you would understand the law as applied to architectural guidelines in general.
It's an important thing for us to know right here and now. Thanks for telling us that.
And if we,
It is
um,
more than a guideline.
if we said,
Guideline,
for
yeah.
example, that in this case, the fact that when the family purchased the property, it had asphalt. And when they made the decision to move to Cedar Shake, these guidelines were not in force. And that was important in our decision. Would that narrow the precedent in any way? I guess I'm trying to.
I would assume that
Yes.
would narrow the precedent and, because if you look, how many people then had asphalt shingle roofs,
Right.
went to wood shingle
Right.
roofs, and then wanted to go back to asphalt shingle roofs. So I think that if we do override what the BAR said, I think we need to stress that point in the decision.
Understood.
So I think our problem is we don't want to override the BAR.
Well, yeah, what we need to keep in mind, despite you all being beloved neighbors of me too, while I'm here opining on this, is the reason we're here is to either support or make incredibly complicated another board that, you know, is serving our community and one that we're all reaping a benefit of because they're protecting the historic fabric in our community. And despite opinions here, cedar shingles is an upgrade to asphalt shingles. That's the fact of historic fabric
Hmm.
of architecture.
I might disagree on that.
You might, but
and-
the
and-
board that decided to write guidelines and the board of trustees that voted on the acceptance of those guidelines thought the same thing. Otherwise, the guidelines wouldn't have been written the way they were.
Right, but the applicant has the right under the code, under the trustee to appeal to the BZA. So I don't like being asked to
But-
review the
but in
BAR,
what regard
but that's our job.
But based upon that we love the Matthews or based upon that we did not agree with the BAR's opinion and that we don't agree in this particular instance for some specific, hopefully reason, that they made the wrong decision here for the protection of the historic fabric that we still have in place here. Because with every decision like this, it becomes more and more downgraded. And the argument of we're not putting an addition onto the house, an addition could be an historically appropriate thing in a way that changing from a petroleum product material from a natural product is different in that regard. You know, I feel like you guys are stuck in and making a damn good argument for something that's really contrary, especially to the person who wrote the first set of guidelines for this community. It's really contrary to a fundamental belief of why I live here, because of the historic fabric. And I'm not the only one that feels that way, right? So we've got to take very seriously what we're about to decide, because we're going to open a floodgate. And you may think it's narrow, but I don't think it would be, to the kind of appeals that would come our way until the Board of Trustees doesn't allow that to be the case. If that's even a successful argument to make, I don't know, because every community needs relief in this way, I'm assuming.
Right, but the relief would come through court. I mean, similar.
And the
to what-
court may hold up a guideline.
Yeah, I mean, look, we don't know what's going to happen in the future. This is a bit unusual. It's actually very unusual I mean, there are other instances in like one community that I found where an architectural decision can be put before the zoning board, but it's very unusual. Usually that doesn't happen. This is a very unique community. And the code is very unique.
Right. If I might add, I've been following the process here, I could do my research, but I probably could go around the park and find instances where people ripped off an historic material and replaced it and didn't ask for any approval. We've tried to be good neighbors and come in front, present what we think is a very appealing material, which will not have a broad community effect. And it's pretty straightforward. And as far as opening the floodgates, it'll be very few people, if any, who can come in and demonstrate that they have photos from during their ownership where it had this type of material.
Oh, I have some myself. I'm in the same boat you are. I personally make a different decision than you all are, but I respect the decision you're making. I'm the other house on
That will
Clubhouse Road
happen.
with the cedar shingles.
But that will happen where people make a different decision than us. We're in a situation where we're asking for this, and that's why we're in front of your board. That's what the code says. We're supposed to come here.
Mhm.
I didn't come here to waste your time.
No, I'm saying that you did,
Yeah.
and I'm glad you're here so that we could, because this has, the waves of this are going to help fortify the regulations of this park, this board. We've never been challenged like this. But what you're asking us to do is to look at the decision that a BAR made and say that it was inappropriate in some way. And I appreciate what you all said and the arguments you're making, but personally, I don't feel like anything has triggered me wondering what the BAR was thinking and why they made the decision they did. As painful it is for me to say that in front of people I say hello to every time they walk in front of my house. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think the bar acted inappropriately.
I'm simply asking for you to.
Yeah, I don't think we're saying that we feel that the bar acted
Well,
inappropriately.
we'd have to,
I
wouldn't
think,
we?
well, to a degree, yes, and to a
Yeah.
degree, no. I mean, what we're saying is that to me, the bar kind of ignored the fact that there was an asphalt shingle roof on it at one time before
I don't think they
before the
did.
guidelines were established.
No, that was spoken about in the meeting that you had with
But
them.
it.
Well,
but it
they gave that a
wasn't- it
different
wasn't-
weight than we might.
Yeah,
Correct.
Correct.
Correct. That's the.
And obviously you feel strongly because you were part of the design guidelines.
No, well, I felt strongly enough about the principal
To drive.
to volunteer my time.
Right.
to run
No, I
it.
get it.
The other way
Okay.
around, Jake, not,
Is it Charlotte?
yes,
If I
it's
may-
Charlotte.
Listen, I've traveled to Europe. I've experienced beautiful parts of England, the Netherlands, France, historic communities, the old cities of Le Mans. Been through Paris and different areas. I'm well versed in the architecture of Tuxedo Park. I respect deeply the architecture of Tuxedo Park, the history with Bruce Price. I respect deeply natural materials. I have unique circumstances here, which I believe are foundational to provide the board here to justify an appeal and an overturn of a previous decision. And it's not as complicated as it may seem. That's my view of it, okay? I'm not putting under the carpet the value of beautiful materials. But what I'm putting in front of here is a material that's in wide use in Tuxedo Park. We have special considerations as to how this house sits, the pitches of the roof, and the costs that are involved, the situation that I'm in, and that I believe is justification for overturning that decision. As
I
with
have a hard
regards to
time
the, if,
to side with you on that because
that's
I
fine.
am a practicing architect
yes,
of many decades
I understand.
in historic architecture. So I come from, and I hope you appreciate that the principles that guide me are what I'm using here.
I do. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Do we go through the 5 criteria at all or not with that?
I think so. I don't know what other criteria you would go through, actually, as. So I would
But so
suggest.
are we being a BAR right now and reviewing this,
No,
No.
that's
Not
not
at all.
what we're doing
that's
here
not what
then.
we are.
Not
What are we
really.
deciding then, to be
Like
really clear?
any applicant that comes before you, you are deciding whether to grant relief from a co-equal board's decision. Here, it's the BAR and it's a discretionary decision. Somewhat discretionary. I mean, I think the guidelines are pretty clear, but it's still, there's enough discretion that it's not exactly like a lot line setback or something like
And how
that.
can we even use those?
Yeah, but we're not, I mean, we have to make a decision, right? We
Yeah, yeah.
don't, that's not a choice, right?
Right,
It-
we have to make a
So we have to decide some way.
So we're gonna use this criteria, and do we have to be explicit in how we're,
Well, I tell you what.
like, it doesn't impact the community?
Why don't you lead us through the
Yeah.
5 points,
Could I
okay?
just-
And,
as-
and
As the applicant, could I volunteer one or two more things about the actual project that, or the intention here is, and detail on the house? Our intention also, it is asphalt for the main roof, which again is perpendicular to the street, not broadside to the street. Where on Clubhouse Road, you have many houses that are broadside to the street with the same material that are being replaced all the time. These dormers will be cedar. They're not gonna have asphalt going up the side of them. There will be, on the flat roofs up here, it has to be membrane architecture, or, you know,
That's what it is
Technically.
today.
yeah, yes. But the dormers will, they have a reveal on the side, right, as it goes down, and then on the front. They're going to be reclad in natural cedar.
And since BAR's looked at that, and
It's I mean,
because it's a change.
What were you saying? What's going to be
no,
cedar?
no, it's cedar. It's cedar now.
They're not changing.
The cedar. on
Right, the
sidewalls
dormers,
of the
yeah, they
dormer.
will just be redone in cedar. So the dormers around the windows has a reveal of cedar, right? And then as you come down the dormers on the side, it's like a triangular piece, right, on each side of the dormer, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
That will be clad in natural cedar.
That'll be, even, in my opinion, even worse, that you have both materials. You have the natural, and then it'll make the synthetic look even worse.
That's what that's what the roofers have said. That's how it's typically done. So,
Yeah, it's not something that we would be very happy with at all.
Be better to be, sorry,
then I'll
wood.
do it in asphalt. I
wood.
mean. I think that this, if I may, so I understand the situation. The decision in front of this board is, do they authorize the use of asphalt?
Right.
As a material change? They're not opining on the color or that sort of thing.
Correct.
No.
Correct.
Right, and as long as that's done, then the BAR could potentially weigh in on color.
They would weigh, only the BAR can actually issue the approval, so they would weigh in on the asphalt
The final
material. And they might weigh in on the 2 versus 1, the cedar shake up the side. So there's another potential. If they say, no, we don't, if you're gonna, we'll allow asphalt, but we don't want cedar up the side of the dormers because we think that doesn't fit, potentially you could be back here
If you objected.
if you objected to that. Do you see what I'm
If they want
saying?
asphalt up the side, then you can do asphalt up the side. I don't think that's a game changer. The request here is for the approval of asphalt on this roof.
Jay, can I say one more thing? I have like 7 points, but I only made up, spoke out on 3, which Jay covered some. You guys have covered some, but again, thank you for coming out here tonight again. The other thing, I spoke to several roofers and also community people in the park who, I'm not gonna say names, but a lot of people have stopped by when my mom passed and said they're rooting for us with the situation with the roof and everything. So the majority, from what I'm seeing of people, don't think the rules are fair that are in place right now. I'm also gonna tell you, going forward, that we need to wake up with global warming going on and fires happening. as much as you want to have it historical, I get it. Go for it if you want to have that. But you should think about potential and fire hazard in this situation, as I brought up before. The other thing is, I've been told by the roofers that the cedar wood that's used on roofs now is inferior to what was around years ago. It doesn't last as long because they're cutting down trees prematurely to pump out roofs everywhere.
Well, there's also qualities of cedar too.
Yeah.
So, you know,
The
you
vast
can
majority are
get,
not kiln dried.
right, you
Yeah.
can get different qualities of cedar, but the cedar that's
Sure.
used currently has.
The cost
Cedar
goes-
quicker than the old cedar used to.
Yeah, we don't want to go through this 5 years or 10 years from now again. We're not flipping a house. We're long-term people have been in Clubhouse Road for 50-something years. I assure you, the house is gonna look beautiful when it's done. You're gonna drive right by it, not even probably look at it, except the lawn. Because you're not gonna be sitting up staring at the roof when you drive by, just like you don't stare at the roof on a big lake when you drive by a house. You're not like, oh, wow. But I can name a lot of houses here that have deteriorated to a point where that's more disturbing to me than looking at a nice.
So
I mean, it just doesn't make any
Okay.
sense.
if I may, the unintended, if I,
Years for everybody to have a cedar roof in this park.
It-
The law, the guidelines that are in place are not, it's not gonna work unless you told everybody right now, you're gonna put a new roof on your house, it's gotta be something. You're kind of like picking and choosing because I just watched the green roof go on a house over there. It looks beautiful. I walk around the lake every day. And I didn't sit there and go, wow, that roof looks horrible like that.
if I may,
It's asphalt.
if I can volunteer one thing, Charlotte, to your point though, is that I believe there's an unintended consequence here whereby people who have asphalt, if they come to know, and people are coming to know that if they were to switch, they'll never be able to switch back. So people will be less inclined to try to switch to a really nice material like potentially like a cedar or a slate if they know that they are never going to be able to switch back if it doesn't work out. Cedar
I knew that
potentially.
going
So
in. I
yeah.
knew that. But
we
has there-
didn't
Has there
though.
ever been
We didn't.
an incident?
Yeah.
We didn't. 2012, they went in place. 90, late 90s, we did this. So had we known that calculation, the calculus might have been different. So
That's
I
what
can't get
grandfather
the bottom.
is.
Yeah.
The Board of
So-
Trustees
so-
voted on a set of guidelines
The
in
bottom line-
2012.
So the bottom line here is maintaining of standard. If you want to vote to undermine the standard that we're trying to maintain of a National Historic Register, then go ahead. But we're trying to maintain a standard and improve it as much as possible without being unfair.
When the house was entered into the National Register with the New York State Parks and Preservation, I've seen the file at the Tuxedo Park Library. It was entered into the registry, the National Historic Registry, with an asphalt roof on it.
Yes, it was. That's right, it should be grandfathered in.
What we're asking for is relief from a board, from a prior board. That's what the code says, is you can consider relief from a prior board.
We're focusing on where we are right now of what we're trying to do in this very special historic neighborhood. And we're trying to maintain a standard, and the application is very simple. Are we maintaining a high standard or are we not? That's what we're voting on. That's what you're voting on, I believe.
Someone's in the waiting room, I think, that it matters.
Julian's waiting in the waiting room.
He's one of our members.
Oh,
No, well,
Dave
No.
Christensen.
Oh,
Cheyenne
somebody
Apple.
else.
Temple
Oh,
wants to
Cheyenne,
join the
sorry.
I should say hi to Dave. Hi, Dave.
Well, we had already closed the public hearing.
right.
You have, if you wish to hear somebody else, I don't think that's a huge deal. But if you don't, you've closed the public hearing.
I'm not sure whether.
She can
I
hear
don't
you.
even know
What?
who's-
She's in now.
She can hear you if you want to ask her if you have any comments.
Julian, do you have any comments?
And you're on mute.
You're on mute.
No, actually, I don't.
Julian, can you hear us?
She said she did not have any comments.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Elise, then you want to kind of just lead us through as best you can
I'll
with
do my
this?
best.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm letting you do it. All right.
So I've already made a lot of notes for
Right.
the record, and
Okay.
everything that's been said by everyone and everything that's been submitted thus far is part of the record.
Can I also enter for the record the insurance note, or John, has
Yes.
that already been entered?
I had already circulated, I don't have a copy in front of me.
But that's also in the record
You have a
then.
copy of that? Okay, so is that in the record? That the insurance will, on the home will be canceled, effective January 22 at 12:01 a.m. I don't know what you say to somebody who.
I'd like to say something.
Public comment or
Well,
What's your father? She's
family member?
applicants.
Yeah.
applicant.
All right.
Yes, it is.
Excuse me, I'm Ed Matthews, and I'd like to add in support of the people who have supported already. Couple of observations, excuse me. Mrs. Matthews volunteered to put that roof on there because she was sensitive to the history, consistent with what you were saying. It was asphalt. She elected to go to the wood. What do they call it?
Cedar.
Cedar.
Cedar, beg your pardon. So that's number one. So her mindset at that time, which I paid for the roof at that time before I moved on. Her mindset at that time, when I helped her purchase the roof, was consistent, as I say, with a house that went into the National Register. Little did she know that the engineering report several years later said, what the hell did you do this for? Because the orientation of the house is very unique on that street. It's the only house except for one, which is a Santilani house that is sitting at a juxtaposition, or what's the right word, perpendicular to the road. You're correct with your comment about the wall in front and the fencing and the angle coming down the road. It is attractive and it draws your attention to the roof. So I agree with that. However, from an engineering point, when the sun hits it, it has no bearing whether or not you have an angle coming down the road and see a beautiful house. The fact of the matter is, the way the weather pattern is and the sun and so forth, that's going to take the shingles and bend them. That's the engineering point of view, from a technical point of view, not mine. That's what they tell us. On the other side of the roof, on the, I guess, the downside of the roof, that's in fairly good shape except for the moss. It doesn't lift and buckle like the other side. So that's evidence firsthand, looking at the house, that one side works technically and the other one doesn't. So the solution, according to everybody we have who looked at it, forget about the price. So why would you throw good after bad by putting more cedar up there when in not 30 years, but in 9 years, this defect came about? I purchased 3 houses on that road. The first one in 1970, the second one in 72, and then this one in 1984. Remodeled all of them, consistent with the look of Tuxedo Park. If you look at the fascia of the Robinson House, which was the first house we purchased, when these guys were toddlers. The second house was across the street, the Moreland House. Came before the board, it got approval there, as I did with the Robinson House, which is still the same ownership today for whatever it's worth. And then subsequently the current house. So the attitude we've always had is to, not put a fast one by anybody, but to prepare the houses consistent with what we see around us. The other thing I'd like to point about, the word code and the word guidelines are quite different. Something that's codified is locked in as a quote unquote, I'm not a lawyer, but a quote unquote, a rule or a law not to be passed over. A guideline really is a consensus of the people of the community. And as I understand, 28 people have been solicited. Nobody has said anything except in support, not 28, but who knows how many people have objected. I think the answer is 0. So that the guidelines basically should be representative of the people who drive by there every day, live in the community, and if there are no objections, given the evidence here of the engineering and technical aspects that are very unique to this situation because of the positioning of the home, should be considered. I'm sorry, I don't know where you are in the process. You've already probably voted and I don't even know that, but I can't hear very well, but that's my 2 cents worth and I appreciate very much the consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Second.
You got it.
I can repeat that if you want.
Oh,
Oh,
that's okay. That's-
Well said.
You don't want to do that again. Please don't.
All right, so the,
Voucher to cover all these somehow, can't we? You can go ahead,
do you have a question for me?
go ahead.
All right, so the first factor is whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by granting the variance. I think that is very apropos to this question. And I think the board should discuss that on the record, whether the board believes.
Well, to me, I look at it, and if 90% of the homes have asphalt shingle roofs, that I certainly, to me, that would not be objectionable, all right, to except for who have wood shingle roofs.
I would also say in my perspective, a nice and new asphalt roof looks better than a poorly maintained and crumbling cedar shingle roof. So.
I'm against anything that's not been properly maintained. I'm also aware that a cedar shingle roof has very tight standardization in quality that isn't, the quality that one would put on their house isn't of a kind that can cup now or 15 years ago. The downgrade hasn't happened within the quality levels of the shingles. I expect to be putting a new shingle roof on my house, and I'm gulping at the numbers you got. But I went into this knowing that if I got 15 years out of my roof, I'd be doing swell and got my money's worth out of it. It's a downgrade to the community, not just the street that has mostly asphalt shingles. No one has went to the BAR and asked for an asphalt shingle and downgraded from any other higher historic level material. So things that are being said now aren't necessarily going into the record as a fact because a lot of them are not factual that has been said here.
I'm sorry, there was somebody who came in front of the board to switch from cedar to another material.
That would be interesting to know, and that would be interesting for the BAR to speak to.
As far as I know, there was one not too long ago.
There was a
Where you
house.
can hang your
there was a-
hat.
There was an applicant, maybe 2 years ago, who came to the board with a synthetic, slate. I do not know if the board actually denied it or if the owner decided finally to change the roof, not change, just to repair the roof from cedar shake to cedar shake.
That would be important for
I-
me,
yeah.
my decision to know.
From my recollection, we denied that. Consistent with what we're saying this evening.
Dave? You've been quiet.
I would say if we're following the guideline, it does not seem to me that this would be a detriment to the neighborhood. And I understand the desire to have historical accuracy or preserve historical standards, but I don't see how it is a detriment to the neighborhood.
Okay.
Yes, I agree. I don't find it detriment to the neighborhood. Simply because there's so many other houses on the street that are asphalt.
It's an unusual house, I mean, unusual street. I've always been, and it's quite wonderful. Except for the new house.
If may I interject?
We're.
No,
Really, and
deliberation,
at this
sorry.
point,
Yeah.
We're at this
It's
point.
done
No.
and the board is
Yeah.
deliberating. So to add anything to the record at this point from the applicant or the public would not be, it won't be part of the record. It won't be reflected. Okay? So the second question then criteria is whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than this variance.
Well, we don't have it's not an area variance here, so it really doesn't apply.
Is
I mean,
feasibility a
it's
financial
at
aspect?
2 or 3 times the expense potentially,
Right.
with potentially not as good
So
efficacy,
the
so I would
board
say
is,
no.
so what you're faced with is either upholding or not upholding the BAR decision, so asphalt roof or not. So to some degree, you're right, it's not really applicable
It's not applicable.
here.
No.
There's no other option that you're being asked to look at or being presented
Correct.
or being considered.
Mr.
Right.
Hune, I
So
missed
they-
it.
That item 2 really doesn't apply.
Doesn't really apply.
Mr. Hune, I missed what item 2 was. Could you repeat what item 2 is consideration?
Whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than getting this variance. And the board, unless Dave has a different view,
No.
Well, the alternative is to do a cedar roof, right?
yeah. And that's what you're
and is
being
it
asked.
feasible? Yeah, is it feasible or not? And it sounds like it's a hardship financially to do it, and it won't last as long as what he's proposing.
Anything else the board wants to add to that? Whether the, whether the variance is substantial, I would say that it is.
Yes.
Now, being substantial isn't the end of the inquiry. It doesn't mean that you can't grant the variance, but it's from one material to another. It's completely different. So what does the board feel about that?
Yes, this is substantial. Yes.
Well, substantial in the look of the house, is that how we should interpret it?
No, well, that's one way to look at it, is it, but you've already addressed that with character, I believe. Is it going to change the character? If you want to add here, if you want to add to that, that it's not going to change the character of the house, in your opinion,
Then it's not substantial.
well, then I would add that to the first criteria, right? Here, the criteria for substantial is, for example, are you granting a 100% variance from a setback? Here you're granting if you grant the variance, you are absolutely reversing the BAR decision to not allow asphalt roofs. So therefore, I would consider that substantial as an attorney. And I don't know if the board,
Yeah, this is where I have, because I think,
Right.
if I think just about the material itself, in my opinion, which other people may disagree with, I do not think it's substantial. However, the fact that we are in effect opining on a equal board, that idea having nothing to do with this particular
Right.
case, but that idea in and of itself is substantial. So I don't know whether we should consider the particulars of this specific case or whether we think about the broader in this instance. So I don't know if you can guide us on that.
I mean,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Another way of saying what I'm
Yeah,
trying to get
No, I
to.
get it. It's good.
You're
it's,
stuck. That's
yeah,
kind
it's a
of-
very, you're in a position that I've never seen another board in my experience being put in, okay?
Mhm.
Where you're looking at discretionary ARB type guidelines, okay? When you grant an area or a use variance, you're granting it from what are essentially non-discretionary decisions by the building inspector or the planning board. This is very different. So to me, this is by completely reversing a discretionary decision, if that's what you do, I think that's substantial.
Yeah, I would say it's substantial, but through no fault of the applicant,
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
Because
Absolutely.
they're not, in my view, they're not asking something that I view as substantial, but the circumstances of the
Right.
situation make it substantial.
Well, and how you're couching it as Although ignorance of the law is no excuse. I don't know if that holds up in court of law or not, but the guidelines existed. But that you and your, beloved neighbor Joanne made a decision to upgrade without being aware that you lost your flexibility in moving.
But the guidelines
forward
weren't
when
in
you
place.
needed
then.
to.
The guidelines were not in
They
place
were
then,
not in place
which,
then.
which in my mind is a very significant
It is,
fact.
to me,
Be-
that is.
Because when we get to, I think, the next one,
Right.
When you get to the last one.
Last
You get the
Okay.
last one?
The next one is whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district.
So that it won't.
No.
yeah, I would argue in fact that
Right.
it actually makes it better.
What?
The physical and environmental condition.
Yes.
Because
Yeah,
I'm just.
It's
wondering-
safer than a cedar roof.
Because I believe
guess
it's
that's what we're
safer,
looking
it's
at.
safer than the cedar.
Okay.
we don't know the facts of that. There's no data that anybody's
Oh, there
presented
is,
here that
there
says
is.
that.
There's fire
been presented here.
data
The-
on
the board
asphalt
is
shingles. I mean,
deliberating.
come on.
So
Come on. We don't have
There's
the.
fire data on asphalt shingles. I'm sure exceeds the fire rating of cedar shingles. Is that not true?
I don't know that it is not true.
Well, there's a fire
But it's
rating,
still not
there's a
gonna
fire
change.
rating on the
That's
sample
not gonna
that's there,
change the
right?
character either, though. That's not gonna change the character
No.
of the neighborhood.
well, you can also,
It may
you can
downgrade the
also,
value of people's homes.
well, you can also, well, value. That's part of character of neighborhood. So your stout, I'll put that under what you said. Um. As far as, is it safer? I think the board can come to a consensus on that without actual data. Or,
Well, I wouldn't really see where it would have an adverse effect.
Okay,
on the
yeah,
Physical.
yeah, we
or
don't have to make it
environmental
positive, we can
conditions.
say it's not a negative.
Yeah, it's not, yeah.
wait a minute.
Okay, number 5.
Okay.
Going to the
Um,
chase.
Whether the alleged difficulty was self-created, which is relevant, but doesn't preclude the granting of the variance.
And in my perspective, in this case, which I think makes it a more of a unique case, it was not self-inflicted because the decision was made before the guidelines were in place. The decision to move from asphalt to cedar were made in play before the guidelines were in place, which might be different than other circumstances.
Well, I see that as a neighborly consideration, but when laws go into effect, there are sometimes people that suffer a negative consequence of them. That's where this is, again, feeling like you're like stuck between, if Social Security is taken from all of us, somebody's gonna get burned, that kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? The new law is changed. That happens. So it would be the neighborly consideration that we're making, given that we don't have such strict criteria to opine upon, that perhaps we could layer that into how we're deciding here. I don't know. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but I guess what part of my point also though is that I could see in different cases arguing the same thing, coming to a different conclusion
Oh,
because
yeah.
the facts of this situation are different.
Right.
Regarding this particular
Yes.
point 5.
Dave?
I mean, it is partially self-created because applicant decided to change the materials, right? I mean, I don't think we can really get around that. Doesn't mean that it shouldn't be approved, but just as most of the cases we get are self-created.
No, they are self-created. yes.
Yeah.
Well, an example of a not self-created would be someone who wants to put an addition on their house and they have to put it on the side that is closest to the road and therefore they need a variance because the other side is a rock face, even though they own the property. So that is a not self-created. But Dave is correct, nearly every applicant before you has self-created their need for the variance. for one reason or another.
I think what's not created may be the orientation of the house, which causes part of the roof to react differently.
I mean, I kind of look at this as, there, two significant factors to me. One is that shingles, they had asphalt shingles. They had asphalt shingles before the guidelines went into effect. We do have a hardship here, all right? And I would like to propose that we override the BAR's decision and allow for asphalt.
So you're making that
And
motion?
I'm making that motion.
But we should also put in that we approve of what the BAR is doing. It's just.
Well,
this-
you really can't do that, but I mean, I think
Well,
the
you've
key,
got
the
to
key,
couch it
the
somehow.
key point that needs to be put in place here, if we do, if the vote becomes positive, is that there was an asphalt shingle and there was an asphalt shingle there before the design guidelines were written. And that is our criteria for overriding the decision, which then limits the precedence.
Mhm.
I
Does it?
second the motion you made.
Does it?
Okay, wait a minute. So is there a discussion on that question or not?
Does it limit? I mean, what my biggest fear is that there's a parade of people lining up at our door and we're feeling bad for our neighbors who are defining things as hardships that may not necessarily be, getting facts from their builders that may not be true. And tugging on heartstrings, which always will work because we are all neighbors. How does that then give the BAR any power to help protect the
Well,
historic fabric of
how
our
many
community?
how many people or homes in the park have asphalt shingles that have gone to wood shingles that want to go back to asphalt shingles?
Don't know, but it is a
I
possibility.
mean,
isn't
I
it?
wouldn't think the number would be very high. And if it's the case where they went and they did it before the design guidelines are, therefore there's another, I mean, the decision would need to be written that is very clear that that would be the reason that we overrode the decision from the BZA.
Well, every applicant is different, every lot is different, every house is different. So to that extent, it's almost, it's not easy to set precedent. I think, however, if someone comes before you with the same set of circumstances, then you would be hard pressed not to overturn the BAR in that case as well.
Right,
Right.
but
But I
these
think
are
that's a
very,
fairly narrow.
it's a very narrow set of
I
circumstances.
can't speak to the narrow circumstances, but
Right.
I'm just advising the board of that.
I think we have to get to the BOT and have them change the
Well, that's another.
zoning
very-
code.
Well, that's another thing. That's another thing.
Well, that's the big deal.
So we have a motion, we have a second, we had discussion, any further discussion?
May I say something?
No.
Sorry.
The board is voting, it's.
Dave?
No, I was just gonna say, if it does open the floodgates, maybe that says something about the guidelines that we have in place, that so many people want to go to asphalt shingles. So I don't think it's gonna happen, but
We're looking for your vote at this point.
I'm in favor of the applicant.
In favor.
Nancy?
Yes.
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 Sorry, no,
No.
but you got your through.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
All right.
Sorry it took so long.
No,
Okay.
it's a very, you were very organized.
I just want to make sure that this decision will remand the applicant to the BAR with the instruction to the BAR that they are to decide, make a decision based on this board saying you have to allow asphalt shingles.
The next bar meeting, there isn't one on the 20th, it's a national holiday. So the next bar meeting is, when would that be, John? It'll be after your deadline for the insurance.
Well, we're making
Oh.
a special meeting
Right.
here
Yeah.
to be with you to
Show
help
the,
push this along.
As long as we show the insurance company that we have JQ explain it.
At the end of the day, if we're gonna be allowed to use asphalt on this roof, I believe I can skin the cat to get through with the insurance and my contractors. What I can't have happen is get to the bar at some point and have that go on for 2 months and be told that we can't use GAF. It has to be said that we can put in this material here,
That is not a decision this board can make.
an asphalt.
The board will.
Well, we're approving the timberland. It's up to them to do the color.
No, you're
Oh,
not.
not, okay.
You're
We're approving asphalt.
You're approving asphalt, but the BAR, and we have no control over the BAR's schedule or their deliberations,
Okay.
but they will have to allow asphalt.
Yeah, I can't dictate when the meetings are gonna be. What I can say is if they, based on this vote of 1, 2, 3, 4 to 1, yes, to use asphalt, if that's the decision and that's in black and white, then I think that can be done. That can work
We'll
out
have
for
a
us.
decision in black and white
Yeah.
that is
Yes.
signed and
So
certified. by the-
Elise, didn't the applicant go before the board with that specific asphalt shingle? Just not the color?
Even if they did, Dave, this board cannot issue an approval from the BAR. This board can only overturn the BAR's.
Right, so we overturned that they turned down that specific shingle.
Did they turn down that?
No, not specific, just asphalt.
Just asphalt.
They just turned down asphalt.
My understanding is they turned
GAF.
down asphalt.
I have the decision here. Give me 1 minute. It did say GAF weathered wood, I believe, in the,
Yeah, no,
Notes.
just asphalt. We were very much against. And so now we will, at the next meeting, we will review your plans, your application, and obviously we'll allow the asphalt, but we'll want it to be a very high standard aesthetically.
GAF is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Being used all over the park already.
I'm just trying to say the mixture of the cedar and the aesthetic. Yeah.
Is there anything in the,
So that would be.
We are not trying to do
So
something,
be the
we're
first-
trying to
Specifically
go
said
against the grain.
GAF shingles. I don't know. if we-
deny approval for GAF architectural shingle. Yeah.
okay. Well, then,
We can advise not to do it.
You're overturning that, so the assumption is that they would have to.
Hold on.
I'm just thinking about
Yeah,
down
yeah.
the road for other people.
Yeah.
Please.
Just a suggestion.
put that in the decision then?
So because the BAR specifically stated GAF architectural shingles were denied, when it comes back, you will have to approve those shingles. I hope they're high quality
Shingles.
Yeah,
shingles.
they are, aren't they? You
This,
said that-
this is what I brought to the meeting. That's what I proposed at that meeting. That specific panel I brought here. That's the very panel I brought here, Timberline HDZ.
Because it looks just like cedar shape when you lay out to that side.
Yeah, we could put
After
the,
it weathers.
I mean, are you okay if we put that in the decision, the Timberline HDZ? Is that was what they came
I don't
before?
think you're allowed to.
I would just say GAF architectural is
Okay,
fine and then
right.
let the BAR
Deal, yeah.
figure out what the best one of those is. I want
Yeah,
to, as little as possible.
If there's more than one type of GAF architectural shingle, then the bar will be able, you're just overturning their denial of GAF architectural shingles. If there's more than one type,
Right.
then the BAR can choose from amongst the type that they're presented. That's
Got it. It actually too is in this notice, it has the GA.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure this is the highest level one they offer. And weathered wood, as you can see in this, I'll just opine for a second because I'm the applicant, but I'd be hard pressed to have somebody tell me that that doesn't look like the weathered wood.
So I will be drafting a decision within the next 5 days for your signature. Jake, you'll circulate it or you'll look at it, make sure that it agrees with what the board decided. And if you wish to circulate it to the board, that's fine as well before it is.
I'd also like to say for the record, we brought pictures that show the home. We have photographic evidence of that pre-existing condition.
You-
So
Yeah,
it's
no,
not just,
you had
yeah,
provided.
yeah, okay.
That's all, that is all in.
That's all in the
All
record.
in the record.
Okay,
That's in the record.
thank you so much.
May I make a comment? I think with these applications, it's always very difficult in a small community for the Board of Architecture Review to opine negatively, because it upsets people, enemies are made. And so, you know, but it's our duty, that's what we do. The only comment I'd like to make is when people are in favor, they very much are vociferous and say so. The people that aren't in favor, because they don't want to make enemies, they generally are very quiet and don't say anything. So just because people didn't say they didn't like it, doesn't mean there are a lot of people that don't like it.
Although I will
No,
say
we
from
get-
a BZA, we get
No,
plenty
we
of
get a
people.
lot of people that come when
who
they
come to
don't like
complain and
things,
they-
but,
and
yeah,
they
with
don't
the-
like what we do.
Believe me, they.
We're-
I've actually been
we're
in
used to
front of the
lots of
bar when
that.
lots of people have opposed something, so.
I just want to make a point for down the road, not for this specific thing, since you folks are talking about the what if it comes up again. And I think the exception here is along these lines. Even if the cost of the cedar shakes was equal to, or maybe even less than the asphalt, they may have, we've been advised not to go in that direction because you're going to get a max of 9 years use out of the house on that particular side of the home. The other side of the roof, that is the south facing roof, is without the mold is in fairly good shape. So it's a technical issue that is connected to with Jake's argument. That I think is,
Moss, not mold, moss.
I'm sorry.
Well, there is probably.
No,
But
there's
it's a
not.
technical issue that seems
Excuse
to
me.
be one of
Yeah,
the.
you're right, you're right.
One of the pivotal things here is the technical issue. It's not about the lack of sensitivity of Mrs. Matthews and the boys switching back to put a fast one.
The
on.
technical, it's in the record. It's
Huh?
written, I have that in black and white
Yeah,
here.
okay,
Yeah.
good. My
Yeah.
hearing's not very
We,
good.
we.
I'd just like to comment on the moss. Moss can be removed from roofs. Bicarbonate of soda produces a basic
Not right away, but.
environment. Moss likes a very
Maybe this. will-
acidic environment.
Me too.
I've taken moss off roofs in the Adirondacks. It works beautifally. The rain just washes the moss away.
Yeah.
So it's not, it can be treated. And so it's a matter of maintenance.
People use copper strips as well
This is
too.
probably good for the roof.
All kind of
In
things.
some cases.
It's just a choice.
Spray wash.
And the person who
What is it now?
let you put the cedar in with should have
Your roofs. Minutes to the meeting.
should have been eyes wide open in
Did
1999.
everyone review the minutes to the last
I
meeting?
didn't see any,
They usually have.
Dave, did you see the minutes? of
Yeah,
last
and
meeting?
I'm sorry, Jake, there was one, it wasn't a substantial thing. I did notice one
Dave, we
thing in
can't hear
there,
you.
but
Excuse
Can
me,
you hear me
can I
now?
be kind of quiet?
Yeah, is the applicant done or?
You're done.
We're done.
Yeah, you're done.
Okay,
You're done.
thank you. Thanks for the decision. Appreciate it.
Jake, there was a small thing in there, and I'm sorry, totally forgot what it was. I'd have to look at it again, but I don't think it should preclude approving them.
Well, the meeting minutes had a lot more detail. That was my first meeting and a lot of things that were said that were not recorded there. The applicant did say, Mr. Singh said that the Board of Architectural Review had actually looked at the design of the railing and they were in approval. I'm under the impression that they were not.
Not the existing railing.
The new proposed
You
railing.
proposed
I don't
we were
know,
not.
you know, is it
happy
here or
with.
there? It's
No.
just that
Should be
he was saying
corrected.
things that were not true.
That's an important.
It should
It
be.
should be correct in the minutes, but that's.
It should be
Did you
corrected.
tell Desiree to correct it?
No, no, I didn't even know if that was, it is what he said, so that's what the guy said.
Oh.
EAR wasn't here to say that's not a fact, and I didn't know at the time it wasn't a fact.
So that would be noted in these minutes.
Yeah, okay,
That would be noted in these minutes as to that applicant.
okay.
Good catch.
Okay, okay.
Wanted to-
Desiree, you have that?
Yes.
Okay, I thank you and sorry we had to put you in this position. I know it wasn't easy, but it was unique. And otherwise we wouldn't do this. And maybe in 10 years we see you again, we'll do a cedar shake again. It just not quite good now, okay?
Don't hurry. Don't hurry.
All right, so, vote on the approval of the minutes.
Before they're back.
So move,
So
to approve the minutes,
Approved.
approved, okay.
except we have to make that exception.
That's Desiree's got this. She's gonna put that in the minutes that, okay?
Right.
She's on the ball over there.
Thank you.
All right, make a motion to close. All in
So
favor?
moved.
Aye.
Aye.
It definitely.
Oh, yes, it definitely does.
Many asphalt roofs, or